Dolores, Colorado is a beautiful small mountain town that lies on the San Juan Skyway between Durango and Telluride. It is nestled at the bottom of a narrow valley bordered by sandstone cliffs and a steep hillside covered in juniper, pinyon, and ponderosa pine. It is home to an abundance of wildlife including mountain lion, river otter, bald eagles, black bear, deer, and elk. The Dolores River has carved its way through the valley, allowing inhabitants for thousands of years. Dolores is also home to the McPhee Reservoir, the second largest body of water in Colorado. Some of the first inhabitants were the Anasazi, or the ancestral Puebloans. They were cliff dwellers and were among the first civilized people in this area. The remains of their culture can be found in ruins and shards of pottery throughout the valley.
Even though a lot of people that visit this area sometimes see the archaeology and the ancient Pueblo remains in this area as the predominant part of history, we shouldn't forget about the incredible recent history along the Dolores River Valley, the mining, the lumber, the ranching families that are reflected in today's population. There's still significant places in the Dolores River Valley that tell the history of this place. This history belongs to all of us, and it's important for all of us to protect that history, not only by not picking up artifacts, but also by continuing the story to our children, continuing to document what we hear, what we learn about this landscape.
The first recorded history was in 1765 when Juan Rivera named the river El Rio de Nuestra Señora de las Dolores, the river of Our Lady of Sorrows, after losing members of his party on the river. About 10 years later, the Dominguez Escalante expedition left Santa Fe and camped in Dolores. They were trying to make their way to Monterey, California. Their goal was to open a route to Spanish missions and convert Native Americans. The valley's first settlement was in 1877, which was called Big Bend, located approximately 1.5 miles northwest of today's town of Dolores. Many newcomers were homesteaders. They cleared the land for crops and small herds of cattle. In 1890, two Big Bend businessmen laid out the town site for Dolores. Big Bend was soon abandoned when the Rio Grande Southern Railroad was built. The railroad was to bypass Big Bend, which forced the homesteaders to move closer to the tracks to the present Dolores town site. A general store, bank, and a post office was soon built to accommodate the new residents. Many descendants of the move remain here today.
The only story that I really remember of maybe what you want to call older days in the Dolores area were maybe some stories that my father told me about the old McPhee days. And in those days, for example, the old sawmill down there, and my father would tell me stories that how he and my grandfather would, for example, would butcher some beef and then sell the beef to the workers in the McPhee mill area. I even heard stories that quote that maybe back then they even had bootleggers and sell various forms of contraband of that nature. And then in addition, I also heard stories, for example, when during the Depression, my father, the old railroad went through Lost Canyon, for example, and that he remembers times when during the Depression that people could go to the train where the depot was and select certain numbers of sheep and certain amount of cattle, and the sheep and the cattle would be butchered on the spot in order to try and feed the people in the community. Those stories are just memorable.
The town of Big Bend had come to an end when the tracks finally reached Dolores on Thanksgiving Day, 1891. The San Juan Gold Rush miners moved in quickly seeking their fortune. Demand led to building the Rio Grande Southern Hotel, which is now the oldest building in Dolores and remains open to the public today. The town of Dolores was incorporated in 1900 with a population of about 200 people. The first school opened in 1895 in a large two-room frame building, and the first high school was built in 1917. In the early 1900s, the dam at Groundhog Reservoir broke, which caused the largest flood in the history of Dolores. Collie Lofquist said,
The water was so deep that there was a man on horseback who came and picked us up one by one and took us through the water to the hillside.
One of the reasons the damage was maybe a little bit more in Dolores was because the telegrapher from Rico telegraphed down and told Mr. Lilly, well, I just heard from God that we're having a flood. And so he kind of ignored it. Well, this particular part of the river doesn't rise until 11:30 to 2:30 in the morning, depending on whether it's a storm from West Fork or whether it's a storm from Rico. So at 11 o'clock at night, the men are getting the women and children up where the water tank is now. It was a flat place there. That's why they put the water tank there. Built a bonfire, came back down, and the story goes that they came back down and got food stuff from the stores, lunch meat, bread, crackers, water, that sort of thing, whatever, soda pop, whatever they could use up there to keep the children happy and fed. Callie Lofquist actually took her children up there horseback, as did several of the other women. Then the men came down and were going to rescue the liquor and sat there and watched the boardwalks float down Central Avenue. They never went back up there, except to get their wives.
The Rio Grande Southern Railroad slowly lost business during the Great Depression when financial instability forced its closure. This led to the Galloping Goose, a gas-powered alternative to carry mail and sometimes passengers through southwest Colorado. Its reign began in the 30s and ended in 1951. A replica of the original depot and one of the engines is located at the center of town today. Many original buildings were destroyed throughout the years by fires, including the McPhee Sawmill, movie theater, gymnasium, Taylor Hardware, and Harris Mercantile.
The biggest thing I remember was the fire that burned down Aiken Mercantile and Taylor Hardware. Because if you look at the old pictures, those were the two really outstanding buildings on Central. I think that was in the 80s, I'm not sure. But I remember going there after skiing at Stoner. We'd stop in there and get something, but they had the butcher. It was just, you just went there, even if you were going to buy something, you went to Taylor Hardware to just cruise through the store because it was such a fascinating place. And today, if it was still there, if you didn't need a bolt or something, a tourist, I guarantee you, would go in there just because of the quaintness of the building. And that left our main street ugly.
Today, located just south of Dolores, is the Anasazi Heritage Center. It was established under an agreement for the development of the Dolores McPhee Dam and Reservoir project. Under the agreement, the Bureau of Reclamation built the center while excavating, cataloging, and evaluating the Anasazi artifacts disturbed by the construction. Over 3.3 million artifacts remain stored at the center today.
The Heritage Center is really the result of a partnership between the Bureau of Land Management and the Bureau of Reclamation. When the Bureau of Reclamation was working on the construction of McPhee Dam and Reservoir, a lot of archaeological work was going on with that to make sure the Bureau of Rec was in compliance with Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act. So the Bureau of Reclamation needed a place to ultimately curate all of the artifacts and materials that were the result of their excavations. The local community got very involved and did not want to see the artifacts leave the area and go either to Boulder or to Washington State University, where the two primary archaeological contractors were from. They really wanted the material to stay here and to be accessible in this area. They also really wanted to make some of the collections available to the public and to provide an additional tourist draw to the area. So the Heritage Center was born out of the mix of the Dolores project as well as the community desire to have a facility here in the area. We opened to the public in 1988, and the focus here is primarily on ancestral Puebloan culture and the archaeology of the area. Although in the last 10 years or so, we have also worked to recognize the history of Southwest Colorado, and particularly of the Dolores River Valley, and some of the history that was lost as a result of the Dolores project. Our special exhibit gallery, we also focus on more recent Native American culture as well as some history. So we try to provide a pretty broad spectrum of archaeology and history in Southwest Colorado.
Along with the construction of the dam came the removal of many homes that created a floodway, which is now the 26-acre Joe Rao Park, the centerpiece of Dolores. It contains ball fields, a river walk, fishing access, and an incredible 10,000 square foot playground. The playground was designed by local school children and built by over 700 volunteers in 5 days. Dolores remains a small rural town that is seeing the changes that many small rural mountain communities are experiencing throughout the West. What makes people choose Dolores as their home, and what makes them stay? And what does the future hold for this little town?
I think when people come here, whether it's on purpose, because some people do actually just move here. They say, this is where I want to live. They see it once and they move here. Or they're passing through town and they have a chance to see the community and they think, I want to go back there someday. And they come back and they find out it's somewhere that's a safe place, that's a beautiful place to live. They find out that it's a small community that's very intertwined. People really blend together, the different families, the different lifestyles. And I think the other thing is that it's a great place to raise kids. And the other thing is it's not as expensive as other places in the southwest part of Colorado.
Another unique thing about Dolores is the river that runs through Dolores. That's a vital part of Dolores. It's part of the Dolores River watershed. The river that runs through there is the water source for probably 80-85% of Montezuma County. So one of the unique things about Dolores, the most unique thing would have to be its people.
Probably one of the best things of Dolores was just the small atmosphere of the town. You know, you could do about anything you wanted to do at any time because there wasn't somebody always complaining about something because there wasn't that many people. And that's what I see is a big challenge of the world today. So many people are complaining about one thing or the other. And those days, of course, being a kid, I don't remember anybody really complaining about anything. People just done whatever they wanted to do.
It's the closeness when you have a problem. Even if somebody's angry with you, they're always there to take care of you, to help you out.
I'd describe it as a really loving, caring community. When something happens to someone, a death or an accident, people are always there for them.
I think that people come here for a small town feel. Lots of recreational opportunities here that people come to enjoy. I think it's close enough to places like Purgatory and Telluride without the feel of paying too much to live or college town or things like that. I think people live here because it's affordable. I think that, well, when I bought a house almost a year ago, it was affordable. I've heard that's changing a little bit, but I think that people can afford to buy a real estate here.
The best things about Dolores, in my point of view, are obviously the river, just because it has so many things that you can do with it, like Big Rock, the swimming hole, or just fishing or floating down it. The canyon walls, I've grown up running around up there. Everything about Dolores is wonderful.
What will Dolores look like in 20 years? Hopefully not Telluride. And I have to say that because I lived in Telluride for a little while. I hope that it will look like the river and the lake and the recreation and the things that are just have always been a part of Dolores will be a focal point. You know, with the Riverwalk more developed and a community that has a more sustainable economy with businesses that line the streets on Central, which is kind of vacant right now, and all different kinds of activities for families and kids. I think it's going to really change into less of a bedroom community and more of a really unique community for people to come to and spend the day and or raise their families.
I hope we're not just pure tourists. I hope we're not a bunch of t-shirt shops. That's kind of what I'm thinking we're going to go towards. Though it seems like all the towns around here, you know, it used to be we weren't tourist oriented, but now I guess that's where the money is. And that's where I think we're going to head. But I wish we wouldn't. I wish we would get those buildings back and maybe get us a pharmacy over here. It's tough to compete though with Walmart and Safeway. But we have a huge elderly population, so we need to see what people need here. You know, the things that fill a niche, like the library's great. I think we need to ask people what they would like to see that would keep them from driving to Cortez, although it's just 10 minutes away. That's what I have my store for. I hope that I can keep people here just to come buy a gift instead of running to Walmart. Just keep them in our own hometown. So I'd like to see us go back, maybe not along the lines of Durango, but get the old buildings back like Durango does. They're so careful about getting their old buildings put back, but have them serve a real purpose.
Well, it's a tough road to go, I tell you, for merchants in a small town. You've got to attract some tourists, but you've got to have the local business too if you want to be successful. And when tourist season is down, that affects the economy of the town because our shopping hub is 10 miles away, and that makes it rough for merchants in town.
I'd like to see more stability and more invitation for employment for our community. I really believe that that would be helpful in our community because, as you well know, our community is middle to lower socioeconomic levels, and we really could use a strong base, a steady, consistent employment for all members of our community.
The only negative that I would say sometimes is probably our inability sometimes to work together, different organizations, different groups, and they always say small town politics, and I think the reason they say that is you know everybody. Whereas in the big cities, when there's a problem going on, you really don't know the mayor of Denver, you don't know the councilman of Denver. Well, here, not only do you know the mayor, but you know all the councilmen, you know everything about them. So sometimes that's a negative.
What would it be if I could change something about Dolores? Maybe some kind of manufacturing or more industry so that younger people, younger families can actually stay in the area and make a living. I think it's really hard for a younger family to find a job and make enough money to stay in the area.
A town thrives on sales tax. In order to have sales tax, you have to have business. And I think that takes a little more pro-business attitude than perhaps we're seeing in some of our elected leadership at the Dolores town level.
I fully support our local businesses. I think that's where Dolores needs to begin, is by supporting the local businesses. Encourage people to come in and shop at Food Market. Yes, the prices are higher here. However, I have found that we have so many unique people here, unique businesses, unique products here that you don't find other places. Maybe the town could buy that area of Central Avenue and renovate it, put shops in there, put businesses, offices, whatever, and eventually sell it to someone who, perhaps with the historic viewpoint of keeping it as is. you know, that's been my vision for the town for years. But it all begins within the town. It begins with people supporting the local economy.
I see a lot of changes, of course, but you don't see as many changes as you would expect to have seen over the number of years compared to other parts of the country or the world.
I might change the railroad to 30 miles per hour. I think people drive too fast through town. And that's coming from a girl who grew up in New York, who has come a long way from speed limits.
I would change the amount of area that the school has to work with. I would like to see a bigger area for the football field and maybe in the future some room for a track.
But I'd like to see a trail or a bike trail being built, maybe from Dolores to Cortez. I've noticed there are a lot of road bikers out, and I know of, you know, I am talking from my own crowd of people who I hang out with, but a lot of commuters that go from Dolores to Cortez. So that would be a cool thing, and to get that built, it would be just, you know, something like a grant, you know, just writing a recreational grant.
Maybe we should do something about the streets in Dolores. We have a major problem. Of course, they put magnesium on the streets to keep down the dust, and that's wonderful. But it doesn't help the streets in the winter when we have moisture, because that stuff tracks in the house. So I'd like to see something done with the streets.
Finally address the streets, the water, the sewage, and, you know, let's get them paved, let's get some sidewalks, things like that. Hopefully maybe some more trails around town. And we have when you consider that in Montezuma County, I think it's 70% of the land is state, county, federal, or reservation. So there's not that much private land. So the potential here for hiking, biking, hunting, all your outdoor activities, and then with McPhee Lake, my goodness, you've got everything from the water to the watercraft to what have you. And the potentials here are unlimited. And what's kind of ironic is as an outdoor enthusiast, I have mixed emotions. I want to help, you know, I want to help bring people here, but on the other hand, I just soon not have a lot of people here competing with me when I'm fly fishing on the river.
I'd like to see a movie theater again in Dolores. There used to be a movie theater here. That would be great to have that happen again, a small community movie theater. I'd like to see more of the shops filled up with kind of the day-to-day useful products like they used to have here in town. There were a couple of stores that you could go buy your jeans and you could go buy your work clothes and whatever. More of a hardware store kind of place. I'd like to see, more music in the community, more art in the community.
I would change right now the way we do look, the heart. The park in the middle, Flanders, has been better. Our sidewalks are in huge disrepair. Our streets are in disrepair. I think the whole town hall, that whole square needs flowers and trees and gazebos and more picnic area, because I think, you know, that's what I look for when I go to town, is a nice place to maybe stop. And we do have a dirtiness about us right now. We do need that square fixed up.
One of my concerns in the community, and I think this is, I don't know if this is countywide as well, but there's a large population in their 30s in this community, and I'm concerned that they don't vote, and I'm concerned that they are not serving on boards, and I'm concerned that they're not taking leadership roles in the community. And I think that it's great that these people are out and they're active and they are taking care of the biking trails up on the mesa. But I think that that people need to take a step further, and that if we want to be a more progressive community, as Dolores is considered in Montezuma County, I think that younger people with good ideas and who have seen the world need to take a step up and lead the community where we want it to go, instead of just sitting back and saying, I don't have time to do that, or I've got to go ride my bike.
I'd like to see more people really viably involved. You get so much of, well, why don't you do this and why don't you do that? And there's just a few people doing everything.
I would love to see us work more together for the betterment and improvement of Dolores as a municipality.
So I think that is important for a community to survive, is to be economically stable, and I'm not sure that Dolores is.
What I would like for my grandchildren to have is what Dolores offers right now. It's a nice, quiet community.
What would I change about Dolores? Nothing.
Dolores offers a wonderful balance of history and nature for locals and tourists. You can experience the archaeology, mining, fishing, hiking, mountain biking, river rafting, kayaking, and camping that the area has to offer. Local outfitters are available for some of the best game hunting in the state. Mesa Verde National Park is less than 30-minute drive away. McPhee Reservoir is a favorite place for fishing and boating. Over 4.5 million fish have been stocked in the lake, including trout, bass, crappie, catfish, and salmon. Local galleries are filled with native arts and crafts such as sand paintings, weaving, sculptures, and jewelry. Each year you can enjoy the many festivals Dolores offers. River Festival is a fun way to spend a day in the water rafting or kayaking, or take it easy in the park and watch the parade.
The town and the chamber are working really hard with some great projects to make, like a Riverfest Day. The town's taking over Riverfest. Chamber used to do raft races. Now the town's taking that, but the chamber's going to do, a town-wide yard sale and an art festival. Those things I think are going to bring us more together.
Very cold and very
Nice, it's beautiful.
The town also celebrates its history every August with Escalante Days. It's an all-day festival that the whole town participates in with local arts and crafts and various tournaments. It is a small community making proactive change and continually looking toward the future and the future generations of Dolores.
I don't know. I love it. I'll never leave.